All right, welcome. It is currently Monday, December 18th, the day after DreamHack Atlanta. I am back, and I'm here to give a tournament report, recap of the event, and a tour of the other DreamHack festivities aside from just Magic. Just for reference, as a reminder, this is the deck I brought to the event, so Blue Black Phoenix. And if you'd like to see my testing with this deck, I have uploaded a nearly 14-hour video of 15 leagues of Phoenix, so you can view that if you'd like. So first things first, DreamHack, of course, is an event that covers more than just Magic, and it is an event that has a lot of other things, primarily video games. Now, normally, I wouldn't get an opportunity to see any of this because the previous DreamHacks that I've been at, the video game segment of the DreamHack convention has been held in a separate room or a separate hall from Magic, but this time it was all in one gigantic hall. So I did get to make a tour around the various DreamHack facilities. So, of course, various video game events, esports, and more. So here you've got all these players in this basically free play area doing whatever gaming stuff they're doing. So anyways, this is the DreamHack Hall. So moving on, there's a bunch of other merch over here. This is unrelated card game stuff, although there is some Magic stuff on this table. It's not necessarily Magic related. They had like some other tokens and related stuff over here. Of course, luxury dice. I don't think you can see any of the pricing information here, but these dice are quite expensive. They can run up to like $20 or more just for a set of just one of these dice right here, for example. So like 6 to 7 dice. But if you're looking for really nice quality dice, they got that too. This table was selling like a bunch of uniquely handcrafted cups and books and stuff. And there's some like horns up here. Then of course the big DreamHack events, there was a lot of esports going on. I think it was primarily StarCraft and Street Fighter. I think this is StarCraft. So esports events with audience viewership. Then there were also like unique rigs. So I don't know how clear this is here, but this is like a racing chair for a racing game. And there was all sorts of like big tech outfits for unique controls on various games. A little gambling game here that you can do, and these electric ball things. More main stage stuff. They also had like streamer events, like live streaming on stage as well. More stuff over here. Then they had lots of like arcade machines. These are all primarily fighters. You can see like Tekken over here in the background. And here's a close-up. More arcade games, of course. Also, lots of people in cosplay. DDR. More free play areas for people who've hooked up their PCs. And then here was Intel Star Citizen booth with unique double joystick controls. Do you play any of these games too, or are you strictly Magic? I do not play any of these games, not that I would be unwilling to. I've played StarCraft before, but not competitively. But I just thought it was neat because all this stuff was in the same hall, so I could actually get to see it this time, as opposed to all the other times I've been to DreamHack, where the video game stuff is in a separate hall from the Magic stuff, and so you really don't have time to walk over and see it all. Then there were these like basketball games here, sponsored by Monster apparently. Monster Chuck E. Cheeseified their gaming. Then there's tons of merch, mostly anime themed. So over here, you've got Smash Brothers and like all sorts of other stuff. And then I have no idea what moonshine charms are, but you could buy these. There were also multiple booths with charms and charm type merchandise. More of anime stuff or just like cutesy, kawaii, Japanese stuff. And more. Moonshine charms are for your bootleg liquor, obviously. Then there's like these. I think these are more video game related than anime. I'm not even really sure what these are, like curtains, banners, more charms. The wall of anime stuff, a little blurry, but if you'll look over here, you can tell that there's some lewdness going on. And some more Bishoujo, Iron Mouse, etc. More anime. And then more anime. There's gonna be a lot of anime, spoiler alert. And more anime-ish merch. And more anime-ish merch. Do I watch VTubers? I'm a big Korone fan, although I only watch her clips because I can't understand Japanese. And mainly it's just Korone for me, but I have enjoyed clips by others. Iron Mouse is probably the next one that I watch the most after Korone. More anime. Let's see if I can get all of these. Dragon Ball, Demon Slayer, Dragon Ball, Demon Slayer, Dragon Ball, Demon Slayer, Dragon Ball, Demon Slayer, Yu Yu, My Hero, I think, Yu Yu, Pokemon, Hunter x Hunter, Pokemon, Dragon Ball, Mario, not sure what this is. I think this is JoJo, Inuyasha, Cyberpunk, JoJo, One Piece. Don't know what this is. Spider-Man for some reason. Street Fighter, Bleach, Boondocks, JoJo, Chainsaw Man. And then more luxury dice, because one seller is not enough. If you'll look over here, that says $40 resin dice for these sets. So yeah, quite expensive dice. And then the favorite of mine, the chocolate vendor. So there was a chocolate booth at the event selling various flavors of chocolate. For anybody wondering, the name of this vendor is Copper Coast Confections, and I believe they do, I believe they're not just local, I believe they ship chocolate as well. So obviously, after seeing Unicorn Poo, I had to know what this was all about. This isn't all of it, by the way. Here's more. And they would also, like, a Baskin-Robbins style place, they would let you sample whatever you wanted. They also had like toffee, Belgian chocolates over here, turtles. And then they had these other ones over here of various different flavors. For reference, these bars are about the size of a Kit Kat. And I did wind up buying a lot of this. I justified how much I bought by saying that it was partly going to be a gift, but there were 17 flavors of this stuff, and I got one bar slice of each, plus 3 of these and 3 of these. So yeah, I bought a lot, far more than I probably should have. Haven't tried them yet because it's a group activity, so I'm waiting for the people I bought them as a gift for to come back so we can all try them together. But from the samples I had, they're pretty good. But do note, these are luxury chocolates. Like, it does cost a lot. So $35 for a pound. But yeah, they were my favorite booth of the event. So then here's the main Magic Convention Hall. I believe this is on day 2. So there were 1,600 players registered for the main event, but only 1,400 of them actually showed up. But there were also a lot of other people around for other reasons, side events, etc. So it was a pretty packed hall. Here's another angle. For reference, this is about half the room. Another angle. And another angle. So then I thought I would get shots of all of the other non-event stuff for people who've never been to one of these big events before. So there's not just a big tournament to play. There's a lot of art-related stuff. So Magic artists will show up and they'll have like prints, custom tokens, they'll do signings. So if you're somebody who's interested in any of that, you can find this stuff at these bigger conventions. So here's some art prints, some more art prints and playmats, some black-white art prints and playmats, and then some more arts. If you're a fan of art, this is the place to be. More art and some more. You can get your Necro playmat, Juice Engine playmat. More art. I believe this is the Infinity Shocks. Some more art. By the way, there's gonna be a lot of this, so strap in. Last Magic event I went to, I probably spent half the event in the Artist Alley. So yeah, I mean, so the Artist Alley stuff, it's not something that appeals to me, but I definitely understand why it would be cool for the people that it does appeal to. Some more playmats, real old school art. Tower, what is this? Remove Enchantment, Library of Alexandria, Recall, and then I'm not sure what this is. I assume a land. Some more playmats. I believe these are all custom art, not Magic related. Some more art prints. And then I'm not sure exactly what all these are. I think these are dice bags and these are like stocking stuffers. More playmats up close. And then here's another shot that shows off some of the black-white tokens. Closer shot of the black-white tokens. Then here's some colored tokens. So the artists, of course, cannot sell official Magic art, but they can create their own custom tokens and just, put spirit, squirrel, whatever they want on it and sell those. More tokens. And more tokens. And this over here shows the price of these tokens, so you can kind of get an idea. Token prices here and prices for signing cards if you want to get your cards signed. Pretty good idea of what it's going to cost if you're interested in this kind of stuff. Here's some more tokens. Anyone in the know, it's pretty easy to identify RK Post's art pretty much right off the bat. The only custom tokens I've ever bought are these mana ones, and I used them to represent Amulet Titan floating mana and Omnath mana, but unfortunately now competitive REL tournaments don't allow you to represent floating mana with dice, so they're kind of irrelevant a lot of the time, but you can still use them at like FNM or to some degree in competitive tournaments if you're not floating that much. I really, really like these mana potion bottles. Some more tokens. And some more tokens. And the most awesome Squirtle playmat you'll ever see. And then, so of course at these conventions, you're not just going to find art stuff. There will of course be vendors there selling singles, and there's going to be a lot. At this event, there were only 4 to 5 vendors. I don't know how it's changed. So when I went to Grand Prix originally, there used to be a lot more, but now it's 4 to 5, at least at this event. And this is also the event where you're going to be able to find a lot of like unique special stuff or really, really high priced items. So here's some more stuff on sale, dice, binders, sleeves. That's how it was at my last con I went to. It was mostly big stuff, like cool stuff. Yeah, I didn't recognize it. So the vendors this time were CM, Toa Magic, Card Cash or Card Cafe, I forget what their name is, and there was one other one. So yeah, this is where you're gonna see the big ticket items a lot of the time. So, you know, Cradles, City of Traders, Grim Monolith, LED, and we're gonna get special secret layer prints and other special promos. You can see Wheel of Fortune over here, duels. And here's more singles. Here's Power 9. 210 for Grim is pretty good. How about 1700 for Library or 2700 for Bazaar? Is that good? 5K for Black Lotus. More special stuff. There's a Time Twister in here, among other things. And some more. All of these cards are foils. A lot of them are also Masterpiece editions. You can see the curling on some of those. Yeah. I think this is basically, if you're interested in picking up really high ticket items, it's the best place to do it because you can see the ticket items before you buy them. You don't have to worry about any kind of shipping. And it's also the place where you can offload a lot of cards at once and use the credit to buy these high ticket items if that's what you're looking for. Then sometimes the vendors will have these binders out that you can just flip through rather than just having everything in a case. So this vendor had, I think it was around 10 binders, and it was like 5 binders per various colors, and then half of them would be all foils. You can see over here like all these Infinity lands. And here's another shot of just all the binders they had laid out. And more people know if a card is counterfeit there, yeah. More card cases. So here's like not necessarily powerful cards, but like older cards. So you can see these ones, like these Ifrits and Jinn cards, like the old Triskelions. Although obviously there are duels and whatnot in here as well. And some more singles. This is where you're gonna get your like super old Soul Rings and your Black Border Red Blasts and whatnot. Mox, Lotus, and some more old school stuff. You know, if you're looking for a heavily played Sarah Angel from Alpha, Beta, one of those, and 700's your thing, this is where you're gonna get it. And then some more stuff. So they're also selling play mats. They're also selling like offshoot products and commander decks if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Some more over here. They also do sell individual packs and boxes. So it's like here's MH2 box, for example. More singles. And then sometimes vendors will have these like random 4 to 5K boxes with just a bunch of cards in them. And this is typically where they just shove a bunch of stuff that's usually not staples or anything too expensive, just to see if people randomly want this stuff. So as you can see over here, Cryptic Command has been relegated to the bulk box. Quite sad. And some more singles. So by the way, nobody could keep any Ixalan stuff in stock. So if there was any Ixalan cards that was like a staple, so for example, Get Lost, you could not buy them there. If they got any more of those in, they would sell immediately. More singles. And some more singles. Also, someone dropped off a uncut sheet of Flesh and Blood. I don't know what the story behind that was, but they just dropped it off at this booth, and then it was there for the rest of the weekend. And then here was a booth of a bunch of packs behind glass cases, and I think they had basically everything, except I don't think they had like alpha. Like they didn't have the super high-end like $200+ packs, but they had basically everything else. I'd recommend any fan of Magic go to an event like this, even if they aren't looking to play competitively. They're just fun, and there's often cool side events or unique limited events. I would say that the side events are not worth the cost. Their EV is horrible. So I would say that if you're not playing in the main competitive event, the only reason to go to one of these is for all the other stuff, like if you're interested in buying the art and buying the tokens, or I don't know, maybe it's worth it to you to just like go out and hang out with people. But it's quite expensive to travel to these events, so if you're not playing the main, for me, it wouldn't be worth it for any other reason, but I can see it being worth it to you if you're like interested in getting your cards signed or picking up art prints or whatever. I would assume that anyone that isn't in to competitively play wouldn't want to jam side games at a GP type event. Yeah, they're bad EV. Here's some more of the packs. So like they had a lot of old packs, you know, going back. So there's like Urza's Destiny here, Unhinged, some, you know, the Dark packs over here. I think the only thing they didn't have was like alpha, beta, that kind of stuff. Here's revised though. And then more singles. We've got Copter snuggling right up next to all the dual lands, Strange Bedfellows. Also Pokemon for some reason. And then there was one booth that had graded stuff. So here's a graded Tabernacle and a graded Transmute Artifact. Damn, they made foil Grims. Yeah, Urza's Saga block was the first time they did foils. And some more singles. I don't know what this thing is, but it's like a custom token thing. I'm not exactly sure. I think this is a Tempest starter deck. And then, of course, what vendor event wouldn't be complete without talking about Buylisting. So obviously these vendors are also here to pick up your cards at a fraction of their market price. So usually like 50 to 60% with maybe more on top for credit if you're not getting cash. So if you're looking to get cards, it can be a better way by offloading all of the old stuff that you don't want for new stuff that you do want. Or if you're just looking to sell a bunch in one place and you don't want to piece out one card at a time on like TCG Player and go through all the rigmarole of like shipping and dealing with people online, these are good places to just off a bunch of your collection. So me personally, I wound up selling a ton of cards and I picked up a bunch of cards I was missing. So like 2 rings, Bowmasters. I picked up all the Soul Cauldrons that I was missing. So like a bunch of high-end stuff. And then after that, after picking up all the cards I wanted and then finding that they didn't have a bunch of the Exelon stuff, so I couldn't buy that, I wound up offloading all the rest that I could for $590 in cash. But do note that they're usually not looking to pick up bulk. And when I say bulk, usually that means like any card that isn't a staple and is worth less than like $2, they're probably not going to pick up because they are working with a limited space. A lot of these people are either driving in from far away or they're flying in. They only have so much space for cards that they can take back with them to their local shop or warehouse or wherever it is that they sell from. And a card that is worth 25 cents weighs the same amount and takes up the same amount of space as a card that's worth $100. So these vendors are usually not looking to pick up bulk. Given the chance, do you think it's worth it to sell at an LGS/online or at a con event? Well, my personal beliefs, first of all, an LGS isn't necessarily looking to pick up all of your cards, right? Like an LGS only has whatever local players are buying their cards, and even if they have an online presence, usually most of their sales are still from locals who are just happen to be buying online and then coming into the store to pick them up. So they only have so much of an audience, and therefore there's only so many things that they'll want to pick up from you, especially when it comes to more obscure cards like weird commander stuff that maybe not everyone is interested in. So you might not actually even be able to sell all of your cards to them. Also, if you have a particularly large, like valuable collection, your LGS may just not have enough money to actually pay you. The second thing is online. So online, you can get better prices than you can here because if you're selling to an LGS or you're selling to a vendor, they're going to give you 50% more, maybe if it's like a more easily sellable card. So like duels and other staples, they might give you more, and you can of course get more in credit. But online, you still have to deal with sales fees. You still have to deal with potential scammers. Like, you know, there's always the risk that you ship your cards and then they just tell TCG or eBay or wherever you sold it through, no, I never got my cards, and then they just refund the buyer and you get screwed. There's always the chance it gets lost in the mail. There's always the chance it gets damaged in the mail, even if you package it well. So it's more a matter of like, okay, how much risk are you willing to take to get more money? And there's also, you have to think about the time that it takes to list the cards, to keep looking at your TCG account or your eBay account to make sure, you know, every day to make sure, oh, did I sell something today? Or make sure that you get like notifications that you sold something. Then you have to actually package it, go to the post office, drop it off. Like, so there's more work involved and there's more risk involved. So it's more a matter of like, how much resources are you willing to invest to get more money out of it? An LGS is only one point of contact. You would have far more options at a large event. That's true too. Trading is best whenever possible since you can one-to-one in value. It's called a trading card game after all. I agree with you, but I've found that at least in the more recent years, hardly anyone trades anymore. Usually you've got your competitive players and they just buy whatever cards they need and that's it. And then they're not selling or trading those cards anymore. And a lot of times the cards that people do have to trade are like random junk that they got in drafts or just like winning from packs as prizes. So it's pretty hard to find anyone who even has the cards, much less is willing to trade them to you. And then there's a matter of like, well, what cards do you have to trade as well? Because if you're just trying to trade your random commander junk, the other people probably don't want that either. So I find that trading cards rarely happens anymore, whereas it used to happen all the time back when I started. Trading cards of a trading card game, let's not get crazy. Places like Card Kingdom are a fine option for convenience, even if you don't always get the best price. It's harder to trade in a time period when people can find out the quote-unquote real value of cards, so harder to find asymmetrical trades where people don't care as much. It's easier in groups, especially more casual commander groups, but I've traded with people offering force negations and various other modern staples. Yeah, I'm not saying it never happens, but what I am saying is that when I started in 2010, that was the primary way that I got cards. I usually wouldn't just buy singles. I would usually trade my cards for other cards that I wanted. And nowadays, I hardly can ever find someone who is even willing to trade in the first place, much less actually has cards I want, and then I have cards they want. Yeah, a lot of people don't even have trade binders anymore. So then here's the prize wall. So all of these events will always have a prize wall. So this is where you exchange. So when you enter a side event at one of these bigger events, you don't get paid in cash, you get paid in prize ticks, which is basically funny money that you spend on the prize wall. So the prize wall has various prizes. They used to have singles as prizes, but this year, and I'm not sure how much this has changed recently, but they didn't have any singles this time around. So all of the prizes this time were deck boxes, pre-made decks, I think pretty much all commander decks, and then they had like various booster packs in the back here, and then some like oversized cards. Now, oversized cards, and then there's like art books as well. So like those kinds of things, like oversized cards and art books, like they don't have any value. They're just there if you particularly enjoy that kind of novelty factor of these things. And then in terms of decks, booster packs, but even when they used to sell singles for ticks, the value would always be terrible on them. Like the exchange rate was awful because you could figure out based on how much entry you were paying into the event and how many ticks you were getting out of it, what the, real world value of a tick was, and convert that. And usually it was pretty horrible. I think the only product that ever winds up actually matching the real world value of the ticks are just individual booster packs from regular old standard sets. And then you're just gambling to open good stuff. Going back to people talking about trading, it was maybe easier when people are playing standard, smaller pool of playable cards, so you know what people might want, plus cards you get from draft are more likely to be tradable. I think another big thing is the drop-off in limited. A huge way that I used to build my collection, well, like when I was building my collection when I started off, I was not going and just straight up buying a deck or just straight up buying singles for the most part. I would usually draft, and then I would use the cards that I opened or won from prize packs to trade for other cards that I needed. That was the primary way I built my collection in the early days, but hardly anyone drafts anymore. That was the case for the last few events I've gone to, not much for singles if they offer it at all. That's actually pretty cool, at least to look. Shame about the rates. Yeah, the rates for the prize wall and the side events are always terrible, which is why I say if you're going to one of these conventions, it's not worth it if you're only going for the side events, because the side events have terrible EV in both in terms of the actual ticks that you get paid out for your record, considering the entry fee to enter them, plus the actual prizes and cost of the prizes on the prize wall. I'm lucky to be involved with a drafting group that drafts every week and talks limited a lot. It's a lot of fun if you can get into it. I love limited too, but the value on it has gone down a lot, and therefore a lot of shops don't even have enough of a limited player base to fire drafts. So here's some more close-ups on the prize wall so you can see like some of these commander decks. And then here's another shot of them, so more commander decks. And then here's a straight-on shot of the prize wall so you can see more of this kind of stuff close up. The on-demand 8-man drafts were $25 and paid $14.1044 in ticks. It was heinous. Yeah, basically imagine, you know how bad like arenas payouts are? Just imagine that in real life. Wasn't the constructed 8-man's 20 entry and 18 ticks if you 3-0 or something, or am I misremembering? They're almost always bad. In particular, I would say don't get suckered into the chaos drafts. So the idea of a chaos draft, oh, it sounds really cool, right? Oh, you're gonna play with like all sorts of random packs from Magic's history, but the thing is those packs are never gonna be actually good packs. They're never gonna be, New Phyrexia or some set that actually has high value. They're gonna be random junk packs from sets that they couldn't sell. And then the draft experience itself is going to be extremely high variance with terrible synergies, because packs of sets are not meant to be drafted with other sets. So you wind up getting all sorts of weird, crazy jank that doesn't work together. Like, it sounds fun in concept, but the way that it actually plays out isn't. So another thing to talk about when it comes to these big events is time overruns. So hypothetically, every round should be 50 minutes, right? But every round doesn't start the moment that a round ends, because there's overtime where players are still finishing up their matches in turns, and there's also the time that it takes the scorekeeper to enter all the results, get everything fired up. Then they have to put the results online and post paper listings of the matchups all around the tournament hall, and they have to allow people time to go find their matchups, find their seat, etc. So most rounds of the tournament actually wind up taking at least 70 minutes, but they also often have huge time overruns. So this is one shot that I took of the round being in negative 25 minutes. And this is not an exception. This is normal. Multiple rounds of the event will go into like negative 20 to 30 minute time. So to put that in context, there were 10 rounds on the first day. The tournament started at 9:30 a.m. and the last round didn't finish until 10:30 p.m. What Pioneer decks take that long to win? There's a lot of control. Blue-White Control was actually the highest win rate deck at the tournament and was a huge percentage of the tournament as well. And there's also the fact that I think judges are far too lenient about enforcing quick play once we get to turns. There was also a lot of things where, so you as the player, you would go to the MTG Melee website and you would manually input your results when you finished a match. And some people wouldn't do that. Maybe they forgot or something didn't work. And if they didn't input their match results, the scorekeeper would have to make an announcement over the PA system to get those players to submit results, and they couldn't start the next round until everyone submitted. Which means if you're a player who didn't submit their result and you just happened to be out of the room at the time, like you walked out to get a snack or just to take a break, or you're in the bathroom and you didn't hear that announcement and didn't realize it, the whole tournament grinds to a halt and waits until they find you and get you to submit your result. There are also bound to be a few tables with time extensions, and if they go to time, it's even worse. Yeah, there's also time extensions from either deck checks or judge calls. And some judge calls and deck checks can take a long time. Like you can have time extensions of 20 minutes. And remember, every single match has to be finished and results submitted before the next round can start. I do think that the number one problem with these events as a player is how long the rounds take. My suggestions for fixing this would be strict enforcement of play speed once you get to turns. So you need to have judges actively monitoring all matches that are still in progress after time and making sure that players are playing quickly. They also need to be playing, there needs to be less tolerance for speed of play. You need to be required to play faster than you normally would once you get to time. And there should be a hard cutoff limit. So there is currently a sudden death rule that applies to single elimination events that have a time limit, which is basically that once you get to single elimination top eights, the match cannot end in a draw. So after the time limit gets reached, it's the first player whose life total changes, either going up or down, that loses. I think there should be once you hit negative 10 on the clock, it's sudden death. First player life total change loses the game, because time overruns of like 25 minutes grind the tournament to a halt. I also think that if you are missing player results, if someone didn't input their result, they get two chances. The judges can make an announcement over the PA system saying, player name, we need your result. If after the second time that player hasn't submitted their result, then it's either you're auto dropped from the event or it's just entered as a draw, or both players lose, whatever. The point is we need to move the event along. Start handing out match losses and DQs for not being timely, and you will see how quickly things can actually go. Exactly. I think judges in general are too lenient with play speed, or just like getting the round started faster. Because I wasn't crazy about the idea of blue-white control being good with Quintorius and other quick stuff right now. Less tolerance for leaving the table without reporting also, like you alluded to. Yeah, because this compounds, right? As I said, the event started at 9:30, ended at 10:30. I didn't get back to my Airbnb until 11, and I left at 8 in the morning. So then here is the table of lost name tags. So this is all of the players who were qualified for the tournament and had their name tag printed out, but who didn't actually show up for the tournament. So the table of missing players, there were several hundred name tags on here. All right, and with that, let's move on to the tournament report. They also had previous tournament name tags. Yeah, they also had name tags for previous tournaments that people hadn't shown up to. To be entirely fair, a guy at my table got a time extension because a police officer came in and walked over to the table and was questioned. Then the cop dropped it, so the judge gave that table a time extension. I would say that is unusual and would indeed warrant a time extension. Also, my name tag didn't arrive at the venue, so likely mine will be at the next RC should I choose to go and get the previous RCs. I now have 3 name tags. So this is the context. So this was the prizes for the event. So it was 130K. They paid down to 64th. If you got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th through 8th, basically. Well, if you got anywhere from 32nd and up, you got invited to the Pro Tour and the following regional championship. And the better you did, the more prize money was available. If you got 33rd through 48th, you just got the invite to the next regional and not the Pro Tour. And if you only got 49th through 64th, you just got $100, no invite. So by the way, this trip cost me between air travel, Airbnb stay, Ubering to and from the venue and the airport, and having to eat out, somewhere around, I didn't keep exact track, but it's somewhere around $700. So to put that in context, you need to get 32nd or better to get your money back. This is why I will continue to reiterate that the prizing for Magic events is absolute trash, and that you should only go to these events if you're either one, place a high priority on the fun factor and have a lot of fun in these events and the money doesn't matter as much to you, or two, you are an extremely good player who regularly gets results in this range, or if you happen to live close enough to the venue that you don't need a plane ticket, so that cost is not a factor. I also think that there are ways that they could put more money on the line here. One is, doesn't the game make a absolute gargantuan amount of money? Isn't it the #1 card game in the world? And Wizards keeps putting out every single quarter how they're doing amazingly. Okay, but that would mean that you'd have to cut money out of the shareholders, right? So if we're not going to do that, let's just add sponsorships. DreamHack Magic Atlanta brought to you by Coca-Cola, and then just put that advertising money into the prize pool. Because this prize pool is garbage, and it always has been. It's actually even worse this year, because a lot of times the prize pool would scale with attendance, and they specifically made an announcement that this was the highest attended RC of all time for Magic. Now, that doesn't count Grand Prix, but in terms of regional championships, it was the highest player count. And previous events have paid down to 128th, and this event didn't even do that. And it's actually worse prizing than previous events with fewer players. There's some EV for the invites for top placings, though. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Poker tourneys are so much better for prizing. MTG is so minus EV. The issue is that MTG doesn't have whales ready to punt off. Some of the buy-ins are all very low. In poker, you have recreationals ready to put down like $40 to $1 million for live poker tournaments. WotC CEO needs another digit in his salary. Yeah, then you can make special Coca-Cola secret lair. Yeah, again, just DreamHack San Diego, brought to you by Doritos. Or what's the other one? It's Atlanta, San Diego. What's the third venue? Is it Minneapolis? Regional Championship Minneapolis, brought to you by Nike. You know, whatever. Get some advertising money, put that into the prize pool. I think the only reason Magic gets away with this is because so many players love Magic and are willing to put up with how poor this prizing is just to play Magic at a large venue in a highly competitive environment, or they just literally haven't thought through the EV on this. Like, I know for me previously, when I used to go out to these events, I wasn't thinking about the EV on it. I was just thinking, oh, big Magic event, qualify, win big prizes, and didn't actually do the math on it. Hasbro firing a bunch of WotC staff to pursue growth while not taking away the CEO's giant bonus, looking nervously. Not counting Pro Tours, there is no scaling in MTG tournaments. The best and worst all play the same lower buy-in events. Dallas, all right, Dallas is one of them. The PT invite is also $1,000 in February minimum. This is so top heavy. Third and fourth only getting 25% of first is kind of whack given the variance in the game. I'm not sure what the normal distribution would be on the top end here to comment on that. But anyways, so to break this down, you needed to go 6-3 on day one in order to qualify for day two. Yes, I know I misspelled qualifies. And then it wasn't an exact count, but basically you couldn't possibly go any worse than 11-3 in order to get the top 8. And you at least had to get this in order to get a PT or regional invite. And then if you went X-4, that was the worst record you could have in order to cash at this $100 mark. So basically I've added these red lines in here to essentially say these are the cutoffs. So this is top 8, then this is still getting RC invites and PT invites, then this is only RC invites, and then this is only cash. So remember, 6-3 in order to queue for day 2, and then 11-3 or better in order to top 8. Although realistically, you might not even top 8 at 11-3, but this is a record where you could top 8. And then definitely 11-3 in order to get PT RC invites, and then 10-4, no worse than this in order to prize. So keep this in mind. Also keep in mind that round 1 of day 2 was held on day 1. So day 1 is 9 rounds, and then that's the cutoff for day 2, and then they would hold day 2's round 1 immediately on day 1, so that they could run fewer rounds on day 2. So I prepared some slides for my tournament recap, and I have a bunch of notes on what happened. So here's what we're going to start with. So remember, this is rounds 1 through 9 for day 1, and then day 2, here's round 10, but then this is technically at the end of day 1, and then this is the day 2 rounds. There were approximately 1,400 players in the tournament. So round 1, I played against blue-white. There was a little bit of a kerfuffle at the beginning. I said, how do you want to decide? Is odd even good? He said, sure. I rolled the die. He called even. It landed on 5. I said, I'll play. We start the match. We draw our opening hands, mulligan. And then he goes, by the way, I'm on the play. And I go, what do you mean? And he says, because I rolled even. I go, no, we rolled odd. And he went, God damn it. And I said, look, I'm fine just re-rolling the die. And he didn't say anything to that. And I said, look, we can call a judge. You're going to say that you got it. I'm going to say I got it. I'm fine just re-rolling. And he just said, no, let's continue. And he just accepted that I would be on the play. Now, I thought that was kind of a worrisome sign to begin with, but he actually wound up being a pretty cool guy. And he actually apologized for like making a big deal out of it. So that was fine. There wasn't much to say about this match. I won. I got it in 2-1. It was very long. We got close to going to turns. And it was just like a lot of back and forth and trading on resources. So then 1-0, I played Spirits in round 2. Kind of shocked that anyone is still on Spirits in the Copter meta. This one wasn't even close. Like, just totally just ran away with the game over them. So beat Spirits, so 2-0 at that point. Then it's round 3, it's blue-white again. So for this blue-white matchup, I had the best Phoenix draw in the entire tournament. I freed the Fae on turn 2 into double Phoenix, and then triple spelled, one of which was Consider into the 3rd Phoenix and brought back 3 Phoenixes on turn 2, or on turn 3. So that one went pretty well. So 3-0 at this point. It's round 4. I play against Rakdos midrange. Notable about his list, he was main decking Unlicensed Hearse, and I managed to Thoughtseize the one Hearse that he had in his deck out of his hand on the draw. So it was a non-factor, and then won that game. And then game 2, he kept a hand that was 4 lands duress double go blank with no threats. And I managed to plow through all of this and win the match. So then 4-0, and then round 5, blue-white again. There's nothing too notable about this matchup other than that we went to time, and I managed to win on turn 4 of turns, but it was pretty close. The final turn was me attacking with 3 Phoenixes and all 4 Picklock Pranksters and Shieldred, and I think 1 to 2 Ledger Shredders as well, and managing to get in lethal off of that. Also, I will note, I was playing a little sloppy in these early rounds. I missed a lot of Shredder triggers from my opponent's double spelling. None of them actually wound up costing me anything, but it was something that I was consciously aware of and I kept missing and kept trying to put energy into remembering those triggers. I never missed my own, but I missed my opponent's. So won that one and then played against BTL. So I found out later the player that I played BTL against, I guess I should talk about the match first. So he had one game where he played Yorion, triggered Beanstalk. We were both like basically out of cards by that point. Yorion triggered Beanstalk, drew, cast Trumpeting Carnosaur, and discovered into Omnath, and I won that game. I managed to untap, play Shieldred, then he drew a cycle land, cycled it into another land, and played that land. I drew and found Treasure Cruise and cruised into removal to kill the Carnosaur, and then he drew another cycle land, cycled it into another cycle land, cycled that one, drew into another land, played that land. Then I managed to play like some more threats on my side. Then he drew like Spelunking, drew a card, and then played another land off of that. And then I think I found removal for Omnath, and then I was just able to race through his Yorion. And I found out later that I was his only loss on day 1. So when I talked to him later on, he was 7-1, and he actually wound up being on the feature match on the second day. So anyways, if this pattern holds, then of course round 7 is going to be blue-white control again. And it was blue-white control again. So at this point, it's round 7, I'm 6-0, so I'm locked in for day 2, regardless of what my record is at this point. So it's blue-white control. I got all the way up to table 1, and I actually wound up playing one of my friends who I knew who also got to table 1 on blue-white. So this one, match 1 went really, really long, and then I just wound up flooding out. I think I drew like 7 lands. So that was obviously not great. And then in match 2, he played Rest in Peace on turn 2 or 3, and I drew all 3 of my cruises. I sideboard one of them out, so I drew all 3 remaining cruises in the deck. But the game went so long that I actually got to 8 lands. I cast cruise number 1, he counters it. He draws, passes back to me. I cast cruise number 2, he counters it. He draws, passes back to me. I draw cruise number 3, cast it. He doesn't counter, I draw. But at this point, he has Wandering Emperor in play and manages to create 2 Samurai tokens. And then I get to play 1 blocker, and then he plays Teferi, draws a card. Then I'm able to kill Teferi, but then I'm dead to the Emperor tokens on the board. So I wound up losing that one. So 6-1. I'm now in round 8 against Rakdos mid-range. So there comes a point where he has so we're both basically empty-handed. Well, I'm not quite empty-handed, but I don't have anything too relevant. I've thought seized him, and I know that he has nothing. He just has lands in hand. And his board is Fable the Mirror Breaker with the Fable token, and he's got a Kroxa in his yard that he will 100% be able to escape next turn when he pitches the cards off of Fable. So I have 4 mana, and I can either escape Cling to Dust out of my graveyard to eat Kroxa, or I can play Shieldred and tax him for his draw, and then tax him for the double rummaging on the Fable Chapter 2 trigger. And my hand, I had Fatal Push in my hand. So I decided to go for the line of Shieldred. I figured that this gets this threat into play, and it punishes him for his draw and rummaging off the Fable token, so he's at least draining 6 life off of that. And then even if he escapes Kroxa, I can just push it next turn and then cling it out of the graveyard then. What actually happened was he drew, rummaged 2 cards, attacked with the Shaman, made a treasure, sacked the treasure, Fatal Push Shieldred, escaped Kroxa, and then I was forced to push and then cling Kroxa, but then I just had no threats left. Then he had an active Shaman and Reflection flipped over, and I lost that game. And then game 2, it was just typical Rakdos mid-range stuff. I was just constantly behind, getting card advantaged out of the game because every threat in the Rakdos deck is now a 2-for-1, and I just could not get back into the game. So lost that, 6-2, and then amazingly, we broke the record. Blue, white, blue, white, blue, white, blue, white, humans. So the humans matchup, I won the first game doing some really stupid stuff with Shieldred and Treasure Cruise. Like, he had 3 to 4 creatures in play, and I just had Shieldred, cruised, gained a bunch of life. I think he got me down to like 5, and then I went all the way back up to 22 off of Shieldred and just got him. But then both sideboard games, so he sided in Get Lost, Ossification, and he had like one other removal spell. And every single game in the post-board games, I never reanimated a Phoenix. And he drew 3 to 4 removal every game to kill all Shredders and Shieldreds that I resolved. So I could never stop his onslaught of creatures. So wound up losing against humans. So I was 6-3 at this point, and going into round 10, technically the first round of day 2 against Rakdos midrange. At this point, it was really late, and I was really tired, but I don't think it actually affected my play. But unfortunately, same thing happened again. Just Rakdos midrange doing Rakdos midrange things. Everything's a 2-for-1, just constantly behind on cards and couldn't get back into the game. They just always had the answer to everything I was doing and got killed off here. So 6-4, then it's day 2. I got the bye. My opponent didn't show up. And actually at my table, at my row of tables, basically in the X4 bracket, half the matches at the tables didn't have opponents. In one case, both players didn't show up. So there were a lot of buys that round, but essentially 6-4 at this point means I'm no longer in contention for top 8 or invites. So the only thing I can hope for is to play for the 100 cash at 64th and up. So get a buy. Then I play against Amalia. The first time I'm playing Amalia this tournament. And game 1, I lost to main deck double Deathrite Shamans. So she was an Amalia player that had 2 Deathrites mained, and she drew both of them. I tried to push one of them, and she used the Restless Savior to indestructible it, and then I was forced to use removal on Amalia, and then I just never found removal for the other Deathrite Shamans, and I wound up dying with Shieldred in play to just the Deathrites double draining me every turn and taking me off of Cruise Delve. And then the rest of the match was insane. So we had a game where she played Amalia on turn 2, revealing Wildgrowth Walker on top, and so I was forced to Unmordigo the Walker to keep her from combo killing. And then off of her Amalia triggers from the life gains, during the rest of that game, she drew 10 lands off of Explore triggers. So that went really, really long. And this match also wound up going to turns, but I ultimately did prevail. So 8-4, It's round 13 and I'm playing Amalia again. No Deathrite Shamans this time. And this one went a lot easier. This Amalia matchup, I just ran him over. And so in the 2 games that we played, they never once managed to cast Court of Calling, Coco, or Return to the Ranks. So yeah, that went a lot better. And now it's round 14, I'm 9-4, and I'm playing against Heroic. And I've only got to win this one match to cash. And this wound up being the most complicated game of the entire tournament. So it's game 1, and they have Monastery Swiftspear in play and Illuminator Virtuoso. I'm at 15 life, and I have a 3 counter Shredder and Arclight Phoenix in play, and nothing in my hand is either relevant or I can cast at this point. So they go Defiant Strike on the Illuminator and Homestead Courage on the Illuminator. They connive 2 spells to their graveyard, and then they only have 1 card left in their hand after that. They attack, and the Illuminator Virtuoso is currently a 6/6. And I'm at 15 life, and this is and the Swift Spear is like a 4/3 or like a 4/5 or something at this point. So I block here, and then the last card they drew was Monstrous Rage, which makes this a 9 power double strike trampler, and I go to -1. And then game 2, I just spent a ton of time killing stuff. It was 10 turns before I found a threat. I didn't draw a single Ledger Shredder, Arclight, or Shieldred in the first 10 turns of the game. So I just spent my time killing everything they played and eventually managed to get it so they had no creatures left, and then I was able to finally draw a creature and attack them to death. And then game 3, so we spend a lot of time him playing a threat, me killing the threat, him playing a threat, me killing the threat, him playing a threat, me killing the threat. And it comes down to I'm at 5 life and we're both in top deck mode. He has nothing, I have nothing. So the board is, I have Hive of the Eye Tyrant that I can activate, and I have a Shredder with a counter on it, and he has Gigantha. And neither of us have any cards. So if he attacks with Gigantha, so obviously I'm at 5 life, I have to block this if he attacks with it. But if he attacks with Gigantha, I can activate Hive and double block, and then he only kills one of my creatures, and I kill Gigantha off. So I drew Shieldred, which was a great draw. So I play Shieldred. So it goes back to his turn. He draws 1 card, he attacks. Obviously I have to block. At this point, I can't activate Hive because I just cast Shieldred, so I don't have the mana to activate it. So I block with Shieldred, and then the 1 card he drew off the top of his deck for that turn was Lauren's Escape. So I lose Shieldred in the exchange, and he keeps Gigantha. But after that, neither of us are drawing anything. He can't attack with Gigantha. We're back to the same stalemate, where if he attacks, I get to double block and kill Gigantha. And he's not drawing anything, and I'm not drawing anything. So we just have a long staring contest. I finally managed to find an answer to Gigantha, so I have like a worthless land in my hand or something, and I just pitch it to Bitter Triumph to kill Gigantha off. So then he puts 2 Illuminator Virtuosos into play. So he plays the first Virtuoso, and I cannot afford to attack because any pump spell can potentially kill me. And then he plays the second Virtuoso, and again, I cannot attack because any pump spell can kill me. So I drew Extinction Event, and even though I'm going to lose Shredder in this exchange, I kind of just have to get these guys off the board. So I cast Extinction Event, wipe out Illuminators and my own Shredder, and then we're both left with no cards in hand, and I have a Hive in play. All right? So now we're both back to top decking. And he top decks Showdown. And the cards he hits off of Showdown are Hoplite, Anger, God's Willing, and I'm dead. 9-5. I wound up at 130th. Absolutely brutal. 6-0 into 0-4 into another 3 in a row, although, I mean, one's a bye, so whatever, but 3 in a row into losing the final round to not cash. Oof. And that was the end of the tournament for me. So got up, went and bought my chocolate, which I spent far too much money on, and plane ride back. So overall, I mean, this obviously isn't a great record. I feel like it's a respectable record, but not a great record. Obviously, it's a record that's not able to win any prizing or requalify. So the mistakes I made during the event were, I missed a bunch of connive Ledger Shredder triggers, which ultimately didn't matter, but they could have. And then there was one round against Amalia where he had Voice of Resurgence in play, and I cast Consider and then just passed the turn without casting Opt, forgetting that, oh right, the voice triggers when you cast spells in their turn, and only realized after I'd already passed. That also ultimately didn't wind up mattering, but again, it could have. But other than those, I don't think I made any mistakes in my matchups, and I don't think I really could have done anything different. The main thing I could have done different was not play Blue-Black Phoenix. If I'd had more time, I would have played Rakdos instead, but I just ran out of time. By the time I realized that Phoenix has a big problem against Graveyard Hate, I only had 2 days left before Atlanta, so I went with the Blue-Black Phoenix deck that I'd already practiced 30 hours on and had a sideboard guide for, and not the Rakdos deck that I didn't even have Copters and Inties for. But yeah, that was my Atlanta tournament. And I also had just like the group I went with, we had some great conversations outside of the event, just some really nice talks when we were at the Airbnb. Those were pretty nice. I got to sell a bunch of cards I wasn't using. I'm looking forward to eating all this chocolate. So all things considered, I think it turned out pretty well.